The lock clicked into place with a heavy, unyielding finality that echoed in the pit of my empty stomach, twisting it into knots. I stood in the dimly lit hallway, just outside the kitchen, where the frosted glass of the door revealed the faint, moving shadows of my family. They were preparing dinner, their silhouettes dancing in the warm glow of the kitchen light. The rich, savory aroma of roasted chicken slipped through the gaps in the door, teasing my senses and making my mouth water painfully, a cruel reminder of what I was being denied. My stomach growled, a desperate, hollow sound that seemed to reverberate in the silence of the hallway. "No dinner for liars," my mother's voice rang out, sharp and deliberate, loud enough to pierce through the door and reach me where I stood. "Maybe tomorrow, Jade, you'll remember to tell the truth." Her words stung, each one landing like a blow. My crime? I had dared to be honest with my teacher, Mrs. Patterson, admitting I'd been too dizzy to finish my homework. When she asked if I'd eaten breakfast, I let slip the truth. I hadn't had a proper meal in 2 days. That small moment of vulnerability had spiraled into this punishment. The school had called home to check on me, and my mother was furious, her voice icy when she spoke to them. "We feed our daughter perfectly well," she'd said, her tone clipped and defensive. "She's just going through a phase, lying for attention. We're handling it with appropriate discipline." Now, standing outside the locked kitchen, I pressed my trembling hand against my hollow stomach, feeling the sharp edges of my ribs beneath my skin. This was day 3 without a real meal. I'd managed to sneak a granola bar from my friend's lunch yesterday, a fleeting moment of relief, but it wasn't enough to quiet the gnawing hunger that consumed me. I could hear my father's voice through the door, calm but firm, as he spoke to my younger sister, Ella Laner. "Ellie's eating with us tonight," he said, his words carrying a pointed edge. "Since Jade can't seem to appreciate family dinner, she doesn't get to participate." My sister, only 13, mumbled something I couldn't make out, her voice soft and hesitant. Then my father's voice grew louder, more commanding. "She'll eat when she learns respect. A little hunger builds character, Ellie." I was 17 years old and weighed just 89 pounds. My body felt like a fragile shell, barely holding together under the weight of their so-called discipline. This wasn't the first time I'd been locked out of the kitchen, nor was it a sudden punishment. It had started 6 months ago, a slow escalation that began with a single question. I had asked why Ella Laner, my younger sister, got new clothes for school while I was forced to wear the same threadbare uniforms from 2 years ago, the fabric worn thin and faded. My mother's response was immediate and cutting. "Ungrateful children don't deserve new things," she'd snapped, her eyes narrowing. "You'll get new clothes when you learn gratitude, Jade." That was the spark. The punishments began small, no dessert, no second helpings, smaller portions carefully measured out. But as I continued to ask questions they didn't like, to express opinions they disagreed with, or to show even the slightest hint of independence, the consequences grew harsher. Entire meals were withheld, sometimes for days at a time. "You can have water," my mother had explained during the first long punishment, her voice calm and clinical. "And once you apologize sincerely for your behavior, we'll discuss food." The problem was, their definition of sincere was a moving target, an impossible standard I could never meet. I'd apologize for whatever they accused me of: lying, disrespect, ingratitude, but it was never enough. "You're just saying what you think we want to hear," my father would say, his voice heavy with disappointment. "When you truly understand your wrongdoing, then we'll know." I tried to understand, I really did, but their rules kept shifting, their expectations a labyrinth I couldn't navigate. The hunger wasn't just physical, it was emotional, a constant reminder that I was failing them, that I wasn't worthy of their love or their food. Each locked door, each missed meal, chipped away at me, leaving me weaker, smaller, less certain of my place in the world. I retreated to my room that night, lightheaded from standing too long in the hallway, the smell of dinner still lingering in my nose. My desk was covered with homework I could barely focus on, the numbers and words swimming before my eyes. How do you concentrate on calculus when your body is eating itself? How do you write essays when your brain is shrouded in a fog of malnutrition, every thought sluggish and heavy? My phone buzzed, pulling me from my haze. A text from my best friend, Aisha, glowed on the screen. "You okay? You looked really pale today." Her concern warmed me, but it also terrified me. I wanted to tell her the truth, to pour out the reality of my life. My parents locked the kitchen. They're starving me. But the words sounded insane, even to me, and I was living it. How could I explain something so unthinkable? Instead, I typed back, "Just tired. See you tomorrow." The lie came easily, a reflex honed by months of hiding the truth. Tomorrow. I had to make it to tomorrow. That night, I lay in bed, the darkness pressing in around me, my stomach growling so loudly it seemed to fill the room. Through the thin walls, I could hear my family in the living room, the muffled sound of the TV, their laughter at some sitcom. It was a normal family evening, except for the fact that one member was slowly wasting away in her room, invisible to them, erased by their rules. I'd tried keeping food in my room, hiding crackers or granola bars in my dresser, but my mother conducted regular searches, her hands methodical as she rifled through my belongings. "Hoarding food is a sign of an eating disorder," she'd said when she found my hidden stash, her voice dripping with false concern. "We're doing this for your own good, Jade, to break these unhealthy patterns." The irony wasn't lost on me. They were creating an eating disorder while claiming to prevent one, twisting my reality until I doubted my own sanity. At 3 a.m., desperation drove me out of bed. My body ached with hunger, a deep, gnawing pain that refused to be ignored. I crept downstairs, my bare feet silent on the cold floor, hoping against hope that I could find something, anything to eat. But the kitchen door was still locked, the pantry now secured with a padlock, and even the fruit bowl that once sat on the dining table had been moved inside, out of reach. They'd thought of everything, sealing away every scrap of food like it was a treasure I didn't deserve. I stumbled to the bathroom and drank water from the tap, gulping it down until my stomach ached, hoping it would dull the hunger pangs. It didn't. The water sat heavy in my empty stomach, offering no relief, only a reminder of how little control I had over my own survival. The next morning, getting dressed for school was a struggle. My uniform hung off me like a costume, too big for my shrinking frame. I cinched the skirt as tight as it would go, but it still slipped down, catching on my protruding hip bones. I avoided the mirror, afraid of the stranger I'd see staring back, a gaunt, hollow version of myself I barely recognized. "Breakfast is for family members who contribute positively to the household," my mother announced as I passed the kitchen, her voice cold and final. Through the doorway, I caught a glimpse of Ella Laner eating pancakes, the golden syrup glistening under the kitchen light. My stomach cramped violently, a sharp, twisting pain that nearly brought me to my knees. I turned away, forcing myself to keep moving, to make it out the door and to school. At school, I moved carefully, conserving every ounce of energy. In PE class, I sat out, claiming cramps, my voice barely above a whisper. During lunch, I sat with Aisha, my eyes fixed on the table to avoid staring at her sandwich, the smell of fresh bread and turkey taunting me. "Jade, seriously, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice soft with worry. "You look sick." I forced a smile, the lie automatic now. "I'm fine," I said, the words hollow. My parents had trained me well, family business stayed in the family, no matter how much it hurt. In biology class, the room began to spin, the edges of my vision blurring. I gripped my desk, willing myself not to faint. We were studying the digestive system, of all things, and Mr. Rodriguez's voice droned on about how the body breaks down muscle tissue when it doesn't have enough fuel. "The human body is remarkably adaptable," he said, his tone clinical. "In cases of severe caloric restriction, it will cannibalize its own tissue to survive, first fat stores, then muscle, eventually even organ tissue." I wondered which stage I was in, how much of myself I'd already lost. The darkness came suddenly, swallowing me whole. One moment, I was scribbling notes, my pencil shaking in my hand. The next, I was falling, my body giving up its fight to function on nothing. I heard chairs scraping, voices shouting, felt hands trying to catch me as I crumpled to the floor. When I woke, I was in the nurse's office, the sterile smell of antiseptic sharp in my nose. Mrs. Chin, the school nurse, leaned over me, her face etched with concern as she checked my blood pressure. "Jade, honey, when did you last eat?" she asked, her voice gentle but urgent. I tried to think, my mind foggy. The granola bar was 2 days ago. Before that? The days blurred together, a haze of hunger and exhaustion. "I'm not sure," I admitted, my voice barely audible. She helped me sit up slowly, then gestured to the scale in the corner. "I need to check your weight." I stood on the scale, swaying slightly, my heart pounding. The digital numbers flashed, 84 pounds. I'd lost 5 pounds in a week. Mrs. Chin's face went pale, her eyes wide with alarm. "Jade, I need to call for an ambulance now," she said, her voice firm. "No, please," I begged, panic rising in my chest. "My parents will be so angry." "I'm fine, She cut me off, her tone unwavering. "Honey, you're not fine. You're severely malnourished. Your blood pressure is dangerously low. This is a medical emergency." She was already dialing, her hands steady despite the urgency in her voice. The sound of sirens grew closer, a wail that matched the chaos in my mind. As the paramedics loaded me onto a stretcher, I saw my classmates watching through the windows, their faces a mix of shock and curiosity. My secret was out, exposed in the harsh light of reality. At the hospital, everything moved quickly, a blur of motion and urgency. For lines were inserted, their cool fluid a strange sensation in my veins. Blood was drawn, monitors beeped, and a doctor with kind eyes and careful hands examined me while a nurse documented every detail. "How long have you been restricting food?" Dr. Kumar asked, her voice gentle but probing. "I'm not," I said automatically, the Laya reflex. "I mean, I don't have an eating disorder." "My parents." I stopped, the words catching in my throat, years of conditioning holding them back. Dr. Kumar's eyes softened, encouraging me to continue. "Your parents?" "What, Jade?" she asked, her voice a lifeline. "They locked the kitchen," I whispered, the words spilling out like a dam breaking. "When I'm bad, when I lie or disrespect them. No dinner for liars. That's the rule." Dr. Kumar's expression remained steady, but I saw her exchange a glance with the nurse, a silent communication that spoke volumes. "How often does this happen?" she asked. "More now," I said, tears streaming down my face. "This time, it's been 4 days, I think. Maybe 5. I lose track." I paused, my voice trembling. "Dad says I need discipline. Mom says I'll eat when I learn respect, but I never learn it right. It's never enough." Dr. Kumar squeezed my hand gently, her touch grounding me. "Jade, what's happening to you is not discipline. It's abuse. I need to make some calls." Her words hit me like a revelation, naming the truth I'd been too afraid to acknowledge. The next hours were a whirlwind of tests, questions, and new faces. A social worker arrived, her notebook filled with careful notes. Police officers followed, their presence both comforting and terrifying. My parents were called to the hospital, and I could hear my mother's voice in the hallway, shrill with indignation. "This is ridiculous," she cried. "Our daughter has an eating disorder. We've been trying to help her. But the blood tests told a different story, one my body couldn't lie about. Severe malnutrition, vitamin deficiencies, muscle wasting, organs beginning to show signs of stress." The clinical nutritionist who reviewed my case was blunt, her voice steady as she addressed the medical team. "This isn't anorexia or voluntary restriction," she said. "The pattern of deprivation, the specific deficiencies, this is consistent with involuntary starvation. In my professional opinion, continuing this would have resulted in organ failure within weeks. This is attempted murder through neglect." When my parents were finally allowed into my room, they came with their lawyer, a man in a sharp suit who whispered urgently to them. My mother's perfect composure was cracking, her eyes starting nervously. My father's authority seemed diminished, challenged by the medical professionals who refused to defer to his demands. "She's a troubled teen," my mother insisted, her voice trembling with forced conviction. "She lies constantly, hoards food. We were trying to break these patterns." Dr. Kumar's voice was like ice, cutting through their excuses. "Your daughter weighs 84 pounds. Her body is catabolizing its own muscle tissue. Her heart rhythm is irregular from electrolyte imbalance. This is what we see in concentration camp survivors, not troubled teens. You don't understand, my father began, his tone defensive. Jade is manipulative. She's probably been making herself sick for attention. But before he could continue, a small, trembling voice cut through the tension. They locked the kitchen, Ella Laner said quietly, her words shattering the room's silence. My little sister, brought by the social worker, looked smaller than her 13 years, her eyes red from crying. I hear Jade crying from hunger at night. Mom makes me eat in front of her sometimes, says it's to teach her consequences. The room fell silent, the air heavy with the weight of her words. My parents turned to stare at Ella Laner, their faces a mix of shock and betrayal. I didn't want Jade to die, she continued, tears rolling down her cheeks. I tried to sneak her food, but Mom caught me and said I'd be next if I didn't stop enabling her. The lawyer whispered urgently to my parents, his face grim. The police officers stepped forward, their expressions resolute. The social worker moved Ella Laner closer to me, away from our parents, her small hand finding mine. Mr. and Mrs. Wright, the lead officer said, his voice firm, we're placing you under arrest for child endangerment and abuse. My mother's mask finally shattered. She deserved it, she screamed as they handcuffed her, her voice raw with fury. Ungrateful, lying little. We gave her everything. I whispered, except food, but I don't think anyone heard me over the chaos. The days that followed were a blur of recovery and investigation. Detectives found the locks on the kitchen, the food diary my mother kept, meticulously documenting when I was allowed to eat, and a punishment chart detailing days of dietary restriction for various infractions, speaking out of turn, asking questions, existing too loudly in their world. Ella Laner was placed with our aunt, a kind woman who opened her home to us both, while the investigation continued. She visited me daily in the hospital, bringing homework and apologies, her eyes filled with guilt. I should have told someone, she said, her voice breaking. I was scared they'd do it to me too. You're 13, I reminded her, squeezing her hand. This wasn't your responsibility. Physical recovery was slow and delicate. Refeeding syndrome was a risk. My body, adapted to starvation, could be harmed by too much food too quickly. The nutritionist crafted a careful plan, gradually increasing my calories while monitoring my organs' response. Your body is resilient, she told me, her voice encouraging but cautious. But there may be lasting effects, bone density loss, potential heart damage. You'll need monitoring for years. The psychological recovery was even harder. I'd been conditioned to feel guilty for eating, to associate hunger with punishment, to believe I deserved starvation. The hospital therapist worked with me daily, helping me unravel the lies I'd been fed. They convinced you that basic human needs were privileges to be earned, she explained. We need to rebuild your relationship with food, with your own body's signals. 3 weeks into my hospital stay, I testified via video link for my parents' preliminary hearing. I described the escalating punishments, the days without food, the locked kitchen that became my prison. The judge's face grew stonier with each detail, her eyes narrowing as I spoke. My parents' lawyer argued it was discipline taken too far, that they never intended harm. But the medical evidence was undeniable. Photos of my emaciated body, brain scans showing changes consistent with starvation, the nutritionist's testimony that I'd been weeks from death. They were convicted on multiple counts of child abuse and attempted murder. My mother received 15 years, my father 12, the difference due to the food diary in my mother's handwriting, proof she was the primary architect of the starvation plan. At sentencing, they were allowed to make statements. My father spoke of disappointment and ingratitude, his voice cold and detached. My mother cried about the challenges of raising a difficult child, her tears more performative than genuine. Neither apologized. Neither acknowledged that they'd nearly killed me. I'm 19 now, living with my aunt and Ella Laner in a home that feels safe, where doors are never locked and food is always within reach. The pantry is always open, a bowl of fruit sits on the counter, and the simple act of eating when I'm hungry feels like a victory. I'm at a healthy weight, though I still see a nutritionist regularly to monitor my recovery. Some days are harder than others. Sometimes I still hear my mother's voice in my head telling me I don't deserve to eat. Sometimes I feel guilty for taking up space, for nourishing my body. But I'm learning. I'm learning that food is fuel, not a reward to be earned. That hunger is a signal from my body, not a punishment for my failures. That I deserve to exist, to thrive, to take up space in the world without needing to prove my worth. Ella Lehner and I cook together now, experimenting with recipes she learned from watching cooking videos online, recipes we create together in our aunt's bright, open kitchen. Remember when Mom said hunger builds character? Ellie asked one day as we made pasta, the smell of garlic and tomatoes filling the air. Yeah, I said, adding extra cheese to my bowl, a small act of defiance, a choice I could make because I was free. I think she was wrong. Surviving her built character. The hunger just built trauma. Ellie nodded, her eyes wise beyond her years. You're right, she said. You survived, Jade. That's what matters. I survived systematic starvation disguised as discipline. I lived through attempted murder disguised as parenting. And now every meal I eat is a small act of rebellion against the people who tried to erase me, one locked kitchen at a time. The nutritionist was right. It was attempted murder, just with hunger as the weapon instead of something more obvious. But my body kept score, and it told the truth when I couldn't. I eat now 3 meals a day, snacks when I'm hungry. It's revolutionary. It's recovery. It's resistance. And it's mine. Please feel free to comment below if you liked this. Remember to like and subscribers for more.